Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to QBSN the podcast, episode 6. I'm Patrick McGugan, joined by women's basketball beat reporter Brittney Bronleben. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited. Us
as well. Little change of events. We got former all-star host at the helm. There he is.
Well, I'm sitting here at the producer desk today, so give me a little bit of grace. I'm going to have to figure this out, but this will be possibly the role you see from me for a little bit, but I'll chime in here and there. So,
all right, so we got a nice show today. We got women's and men's soccer, the end to their season and first round of the MAC tournaments. Men's basketball, starting off home opener against Central Connecticut, and then we're talking, of course, women's basketball, beat reporter, all-star rookie, so... But let's start off. Women's soccer versus Canisius. It was a scoreless first half, but pretty physical. Quinnipiac controlled possession time and then penalty shots. Canisius scored first, and then Corey Anderson answered with a top-shelf penalty shot strike. So then they go to OT, tied 1-1, and Canisius ends up winning 4-3 in penalty kicks. Not a game the Bobcats were expecting to lose.
No, the Bobcats, they played Canisius. Of my 4 years here, 3 out of the 4 times they played Canisius in that semifinal round. The Bobcats, they're just a young team. They don't have the experience yet. Dave Clark was talking about it all season. That was their first loss also in MAC play. They've always tied. So, going to tie with the penalty kicks, I wasn't, surprised because all season they're getting ties. But I was just kind of, disappointed because, they've been in the situation before. You expect them to pull through, but a lot of it just came down to they're just a young, unexperienced team.
Right, and I think another part was, obviously scoring. In the scoreless first half, usually you don't see that from the Bobcats, but especially not in the playoffs. The whole Dave Clark mindset, strike first, and didn't go their way. But yeah, go ahead.
And they also have a lot of opportunities. They had 16 corners. They had 7 shots on goal, 15 shots in total. It just they couldn't finish. They couldn't get the ball to the back of the net. In this instance, in playoffs, you got to score. They had the opportunities, they just couldn't emphasize on them.
Yeah, I think that's been a big mark we've talked about with men's ice hockey. We've talked about that a lot. They've had a lot of opportunities to do stuff and haven't been hitting on them. We also talked about it with field hockey, right? So many opportunities and just the execution wasn't there. But let's move on. Men's soccer versus Iona. Men's soccer comes to an end of the first round, similar to women's soccer. It was just a mess. 5-0 loss.
Men's soccer, if you asked me at the beginning of the season, I didn't think they were going to make playoffs. They started off really playing sloppy soccer, just weren't playing as a team. Everyone was focused on could not score at all. They had injuries on the field. Alex Miller coming back towards the end of the season, really stepping up. But just overall, I'm just really impressed they made it to a playoff spot. If you would have asked me again, as I said at the beginning of the season, I've been like, you're crazy. They just weren't playing as a unit. But then to go even make the playoffs, I would say that's a successful season.
Yeah, they really turned it around when they started MAC play, and, they made it there, right? That's all you can ask for with the start they had.
Yeah, they had a 5-5 MAC record. That's not bad. 5-5. That's 5 wins, 5 losses. Breaking even.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, we'll call it a sweet and sour end, but, they did make it, which was, I think, the bigger story. Nobody thought they were going to, and I think it was a championship was pretty much out of the question.
Yes, definitely. And then, but you also put in perspective that they won 3 of their last 4 regular season games, so it's they did make this fight back. There was that little push towards the end. It's just Iona's a good team. When you can't score, and then you have opportunities, and you, again, can't get the ball to the back of the net. Quinnipiac had 10 shots, 7 shots on goal, 4 corner kicks, opportunities to score, and just they couldn't get the job done.
Right. And all right, men's basketball. Central Connecticut, very slow start. And then, Bobcats kind of ran away with it in the second half. But Amari didn't start off strong. He was kind of missing all around. Bobcats struggled to rotate on defense. The first half was 37-27. I know we were all kind of looking around like, this is Central Connecticut. What are they doing? But second half came. Bobcats woke up. Mari finished with 20, Zimmerman 19, and Grant with a career high 14. Final score 71-49. Bobcats took that one. What are your thoughts on that game?
This is how they started basically all 4 years I've been here, is that they have a really slow start to the season, even when they're playing against St. John's. Yes, St. John's was ranked number 5 in the nation, but they just had nothing going for them. And then that kind of transferred into the CCSU game, where the starting lineup, they just don't communicate or have these silly turnovers, not talking about who's cutting, where's the ball going, especially on defense. They lack communication on defense, and it's a huge thing. You see that players that, stepping up. Paul Otieno transferred out for the Bobcats. Someone's going to step up into that big man role. We expect Spence Wayway to step up, but again, he's having a slow start. He's trying to find that position. He's getting there. By the second half, I'd have to say he played a lot better than the first half, but he's just not where the Bobcats need him to be right now.
Yeah, Bobcats, in the first half especially, they were getting to the rim, but they were getting denied a lot. That kind of changed the second half. They still got to the rim, but it was a lot more outside shooting. Zimmerman was hitting crazy from 3. He couldn't miss. But yeah, we talked about personnel in the preseason and how Lewis and Otieno leaving, how that was going to affect them. And to your point, Spence Way, I think it's just going to take time.
No, definitely. They just need to rebuild. It seems like they're also unsure as a team who the core starting 5 is going to be. They're still waiting for players to step up. A freshman I'm really excited to see and who's played great so far, Keith McKnight. He's been on fire. He has like that little style, little flash, little flair, and I'm excited. He's going to grow to be a great player, but he's already, as a first year, really kind of like taking a big step and a big lead, and I think he's doing fantastic with this Bobcats team.
Yeah, and the same, with the addition of a Sim Jones from FIU. He hasn't been, leading scorer or anything, but he's moving the ball around, getting some assists there, playing pretty solid defense. So that's another person that they've added that they're starting to lean on. So, big game Tuesday, Yale, the Battle of Whitney Ave. That'll be fun to watch. So, yeah, excited to see how they kind of progress and how that offense, defense, that's going to come, but how that offense can try to get off to a better start.
No, definitely, I agree. They have to get to a better start and just really help out Amari Monroe. Obviously, yes, he's Quinnipiac's guy. He's the one everyone's looking to guard because they know he's going to be the one taking the shot, but it's about the players, getting open, helping out. Someone else has got to be stepping up because Paul Otieno last year did a lot. Someone else has got to step up, and I think players will get there. Again, it's just really early in their season, obviously only playing 2 games so far, and then you're playing St. John's, who's like some of the best basketball you'll see in the country, and then you play Central Connecticut, and you're like, okay, so that's like a big drop. So trying to level where they are right now is kind of hard because you're playing like 2 teams opposite ends of the spectrum.
Exactly.
So they'll get there eventually. Don't rule them out yet of being MAC contenders, but they have to figure out what's going on.
Right. And I think now we can transition to women's basketball. Your expertise, off to a 1-1 start. They beat BU 65-55, lost to Rutgers 55-64. Pretty similar scores, but kind of flipped. Versus BU, Grisdale led with scoring 17. Martin had 14 and Foley had 10. And then Rutgers, Grisdale leads scoring again with 19. Ella Ryan stepped up in that one, 14 points. She was hitting from 3 too. And then Ella O'Donnell was 7. Lazat and O'Donnell tied in rebounds 5 apiece, so that's going well for them. And in that Rutgers game, they really controlled the first 3 periods. They outscored Rutgers in the first and the third. They tied with 9 points each in the second. So they went into halftime with a lead. Then they go into the fourth quarter with a 6-point lead, and they just defensively couldn't hold off the attack.
Yeah, I was actually really impressed with that Rutgers matchup. I was actually surprised that Quinnipiac was leading all through the first. They're a good team, don't get me wrong, but they're still trying to fill that gap of losing Gal Revive as the point guard position and then dealing with players, it's still early on in the season, finding that rotation, who's the starting 5. They're still working on that and figuring out who's going to be the subs. So they're not like at 100% yet. I obviously expected early in the season, but I was just really impressed that they were able to lead. They're doing a great job. Obviously, Captain Jackie Grisdale, 3 out of the 5 years here, a beast being a captain on the team. She's seen this team go from where it's been at the lowest with injuries back to my sophomore year to now where it's a team where everyone can step up and play with a big bench depth. So I'm not surprised that this team kept it close. I'm just, in the fourth quarter, Rutgers got the best of them. Rutgers, also a mid-major school for women's basketball, but they're a little bit, seen a little higher than Quinnipiac because they play the Big Ten,
right.
They play other teams, and they were in the WNIT last postseason. So I think this is a big radar step for Quinnipiac, being put on other people's radars, being like, oh, yes, MAC, mid-major basketball, but they're nothing to joke about.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Carson Martin, BU, first game, 14 points, contributed a lot. And then we don't really have any information. Is she hurt? Because she didn't play against Rutgers.
Yeah, we don't know any of that information, what's actually behind the scenes, but she didn't play against Rutgers, obviously, still early in the season, but that's also kind of to the point of that bench role. So Carson Martin, yes, has a big role on this team, but the bench, you have Ella Ryan step up and make big baskets. So even if someone will go down during the season, you see that this bench is going to help this team out. Ella Ryan, I think she's going to be a huge role player. She's not going to be as big as Gallery Reeve was for the team last year, but I think when they need someone to step up, it's going to be her.
Yeah, absolutely. She was stud in every field in high school, won multiple regional championships, multiple regional player of the years, just did a lot for that Brentwood high school team, and now off to a great start here at Quinnipiac. So let's talk a little bit about Foley and O'Donnell. You got two not huge bigs, but talented and reliable bigs. How do you see them working together this year?
I think they're actually going to work really well together. Last year, Grace Labarge, she graduated. She was kind of the starter. Ella O'Donnell was her sub. Anna Foley, the starter, always had that big role, mostly stayed big minutes on the court. But Ella O'Donnell was a sub for either Labarge or Ella O'Donnell. So now she's for Anna Foley, Ella O'Donnell was the sub. So now Ella O'Donnell's that starting role. So I think that she's seen and played with Anna Foley for these past couple of years, that they're going to work really well together. They communicate well. They just have to work on their pick and roll and talking on defensively. That's where I just get a little concerned about, that the communication on defense, that the Bobcats really have to play their strongest defense. But I think they're going to be a great power dynamic, and especially now that Emma Lazat, she didn't play much last year, now stepping up that sub role, I think they're going to have a great rotation and be really strong. Yes, they're not the tallest, especially in women's basketball or even in the MAC, but they're really strong at driving to the basket and drawing those fouls.
Right. And now Maria Keeley, we talked about in preseason. We know there's a big question mark around if she was going to be the point guard. And through these first two games, really hasn't seen much of anything. So what is your take on that?
Well, we kind of saw in that exhibition game against Holy Cross that she was the starting point guard. So I was like, oh, that makes sense, because 2 years ago when she was a freshman, she kind of stepped up as a role as the point guard sub, subbing with Paige Girardi. But Paige Girardi has really stepped up, and she's playing well. When she plays well, she plays a really good basketball game, especially as the point guard. She has great vision of the court, and she makes great passes. Sometimes when she gets in a funk, though, she'll just have turnovers that really hurt the team. But I think Maria Keeley's going to kind of be that sub that comes off the bench to help steps up eventually. Her and Ella O'Donnell played in Ireland together, so they have that chemistry. So I think that will also play a factor. But eventually she will become that big impact sub off the bench to step up and point guard when the team needs it. But she's just not there yet. She's still just trying to find her position on the team, kind of find who she is as a player.
Got it. And now let's talk expectations. Obviously, it's early in the year. You watched them for the last couple of years. What do you see, and not even like the start, but just the personnel they have? Fabry obviously has more experience than literally anyone, maybe except Gino Oriyama. But, where do you see this team going? What are some realistic expectations down the line, playoffs, possible MAC championship? What are you thinking here?
I think they're going to have another great season compared to last season. They're probably going to go back to the MAC championship game. They have that heart and effort. Fabry, that's all she preaches, is that this team, they have heart and effort. Even when everyone thinks they're out, they're still in. They're going to play. So I think that's a part of the big mentality of that women's basketball team, is that they want it. They want to beat Fairfield. And they did beat Fairfield for the first time last season. Huge. That was kind of like the moment for the MAC where, Fairfield can be slayed. They're the Giants. They can be taken down. So if Quinnipiac can do it, why can't we? So I think that mindset, especially going to this season, knowing that the Bobcats have beaten Fairfield, yes, they're a really good team. Megan Anderson is one of the best players I have watched play college basketball. She is fantastic, and she's only getting better. So, yeah, she's a force to be reckoned with, but I think the Bobcats can take them back to a MAC championship game. Will they win? We'll see what the season has for us, but I think they can get there. They're a strong team. They want it. They'll be good. They'll probably drop 1 or 2 games again during this season. I expect it. Happens. You can't be perfect. If you're perfect, you can't grow as a team. So that's going to happen, but I think they'll eventually beat Fairfield in a MAC championship. Could it be this season? Maybe. We'll see. But they're gonna be back in a MAC championship game.
Yeah, we're all hoping, and they definitely have the coach to do it and the pieces to do it, especially with adding the Ryan sisters. That was big for them, especially for coming off the bench and just to your point, having a deeper bench. So I think as we look down the line, obviously Fairfield. Who else is going to contend with Quinnipiac and give them some struggles? Season, postseason, what are you thinking?
I think, Mount St. Mary's is always a struggle for Quinnipiac, especially when they travel down to Mount St. Mary's. It's those bus rides that really, not like stump a player up, but it takes a lot on you to take those
Let's
long
get
trips.
A plane.
Right? Start traveling by
Someone
plane.
find them a plane.
So Mount St. Mary's, that's who they lost to last season, right during this Christmas break, and that was kind of like they lost to Mount St. Mary's, but again, you can't be perfect all the time. Again, obviously Fairfield's going to really give them a run for their money. Even Merrimack last season during the MAC tournament, it was a pretty close matchup. So I think when they're on their A game, I don't think any team is really going to come close to Quinnipiac besides Fairfield. But when they're in these slumps and they're playing long games in a row, traveling, some of these teams that you might not see as top dogs or top contenders, they're going to make Quinnipiac work, like Merrimack and Mount St. Mary's, even sometimes Siena, Ryder.
What
St.
about
Peter's.
Marist? Marist was 4th in the preseason poll. What do you think about them?
I think they're actually also going to be a contender with Fairfield Quinnipiac. They're just normally not a strong team, but this season going into it, they look like they're a strong team. They're going to work well together, and yes, they're going to give Quinnipiac a run for their money. Just again, it's usually like a team that you don't see in the top with.
Right.
But I think this year it's all about the changing point in the mindset.
Yeah. So if you take Quinnipiac out of the equation, obviously Fairfield's won. They've been won. Is it Mount St. Mary's? Is it Marist? Is it Siena? Is it any of those teams? Is it Ryder? Is there anyone besides Quinnipiac you feel has a legitimate chance to take them down?
That's a good question. So I would used to say Niagara because they used to be a really good team, but they really fell off last year. But I think even like a St. Peter's, it's always the ones you have to watch out for, where they always trap games happen all the time. Even as we're talking with men's soccer, where beginning of the season you're like, oh my god, this team's no way can make playoffs, and then all of a sudden they make playoffs. I think a team like St. Peter's, they have the experience. They're a good team. They might not, the records from last year might not show it, but they are a good team. And players like Jada Mills, Layla Grant, they've been on this team. They've seen stuff. They know how to play basketball, and you're always like the underdogs. So let them play. They'll play good basketball, and St. Peter's is also like an aggressive team. They'll play competitive with you. Quinnipiac isn't always seen as like a team that's going to get feisty back right away. They have to be aggravated to get angry too. So if teams, they get them angry, they'll play good basketball too.
So historically, you've watched Quinnipiac for a long time. When is the point where, because they're not the most aggressive team right off the bat, what's the point where they're moving to the full court press, they're going all out? Is it when they're down? Is it if they're against a Fairfield trying to put the pressure on right away? What have you seen from them? What do you expect to see this year?
Typically, they're not a team that does like a full court press. They usually just get back, get ready, be ready in their positions. But I've seen even earlier in the season, Coach Fabry, like during non-con, will test out her press. She likes to see what players can do what, who can step up, and even if the other team's either up by 15 or down by 15, she's going to do what's best for her team. So I think in a situation, they're probably not going to press a lot. They don't like to do that a lot. It gets them out of position. They have to get back in position, and they kind of struggle with that sometimes, talking about who's guarding who and when they're getting back. But I definitely think against Fairfield, you're going to see that early on, try to make those mistakes. But I don't think we're going to see it a lot. But when it's needed, she'll pull it out, definitely.
Yeah, I just think it's such a unused part of the game, especially when you're playing someone like Fairfield, who it's inevitable. They're going to score, you know? So maybe, you know, try out that press, see if it works. That's great. If it doesn't work, they were going to get the bucket anyway. You know what I mean?
No, I definitely agree. And also part of the problem is that Quinnipiac, when they try to get their communication back on defense, that's usually when they fall apart. So if they're in the press, they're out of position, and you leave Megan Anderson open, sure, she'll get the basket, but maybe try to make those turnovers at half court and then get the easy layup.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. Love talking women's basketball. And, you know, you got the veteran and the rookie here, so we're going to be talking a lot more about them. So excited to work with you this year with Josh and Matt. We're going to have a great time. But thank you so much for coming on, and thanks for watching episode 6, everybody. Peace.